we can start. The first topic will anyway touch CLI. So then, welcome to the RE workgroup meeting. You can see my screen? Perfect. So there are a few topics on the agenda today. Action items from last meeting. I gave the TOC and working group leads a head up for disabling V2. And we discussed the SYN removal timeline will not happen before, I think, October or something like that was a wish by Thess. No problem. Good. First thing is CF API V2 end of life. We have now the first CF deployment version released, 47, that ships with V2 disabled by default. Of course, there's an ops file to re-enable it for operators, but might be that this will bring some disturbance here and there, like we have seen in the CLI. There are integration tests missing, and there are, of course, some PRs to add this ops file. Just a reminder, of course, it's possible to simply re-enable V2 and everything will go green, but this is not the real solution, right? You should really, so I would propose a better solution might be to disable the integration tests that have V2 usage, annotate them with a ticket and solve them one by one. Because if you now disable V2 globally and keep it for a long time, then the next surprise will come in 1 or 1.5 years. And then there is no easy possibility to revert anymore. Would be my proposal. That's what I always give as an answer to similar questions. So yeah, the version is out, and that also concludes phase 1 of the V2 end of life RFC. And if you have feedback or concerns or whatever, there's a PR open where in one of the next TOC meetings we will formally finish that with a TOC approval, merge it, and then comes phase 2. So that's this, phase 1 was just the technical prerequisites and this CF deployment release. And now comes, I think, the bigger work to adapt the community-owned clients like CF CLI, CF Java client, and there are a few more that still have some V2 usage. The goal in the RFC is to disable V2 for good in, let's say, mid-end 26. So there is still plenty of time, but time passes fast.
Is there, what's the planning for the plugin interface? Because there are APIs or function calls that are predefined for that already. Is that going to be converted, or is it, or is team, or is it a new team creating new interfaces for doing plugins?
Define new team, please.
Whoever you want to assign to work on plugin API interfaces, it may be other people other than the people who are working on the CLI team.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, we don't have like right now like any kind of active kind of roadmap like or plans like for plugin interface. What we know that they indeed depend on V2, and with V2 turned off, it won't work. These are facts. What to do? There were a couple proposals in terms of direction, like starting from just emulating V2 calls on V3 endpoints, and like with all consequences, like potentially like very fragile, to just redesigning like whole plugin ecosystem. So it seems like kind of we need to reevaluate like what these plugins give us and why do we want to keep them. Early in CLI life, they were essential to bring like new beta features to test and fix them like in faster pace. Right now, it seems like it's not that important from this perspective. there are still a couple important CLI plugins like that customers actively seems like using. So it's all kind of open for discussion, like what to do for CLI plugins. The reason I just like wrote this point here, it's because like it's better to start early this discussion and come up with some direction, like what do we want to do. So to sum up this, like again, just like we can completely remove plugin system if we don't see like much value in that. We could try to design like brand new system, potentially like with some dependency management, like to support like older plugins, like not support all plugins, or we can try to emulate like which seems like hacky and potentially kind of problematic. So I don't think like it's something like we need to do right now, like, but just wanted to bring it up.
Okay. There's a lot of plugins that exist that people use that are not in the community area at this point. So I'm for at least having some form of a plugin interface. There is a predefined API for it already that's already been predefined for some of the work. But of course, everybody has to extend it. So I'm hoping whenever you have that discussion, I'd like to be part of that when that
Of
occurs.
course. Yeah. Also, it would be very helpful if you can just come up with some numbers, because as core CLI team, we don't really have like any telemetry or any metrics about plugin usage, and that kind of hurts because it's very hard to really give like any kind of back any decision. Like we don't know, for instance, like which plugins are still working, which plugins are broken, like since we don't run like tests. And especially what you just brought up about private repository, we suspect that companies might already invested like significant efforts into some private plugins, but since we don't have visibility, it would be very helpful to bring this kind of information to bubble it up so we can evaluate and make right decisions.
Okay. I will
This-
I'll assist you on some of that research. So, okay.
Thank you very much.
Maybe to add a pragmatic approach for the near future, it could be to use the existing, let's say, plugin mechanism, but do not use the plugin interface that exists. So basically, you are called, you get the context information like space org and API and an XS token, and from then on, you implement the functionality using v3 and directly interact with the CF API. This approach has been implemented by a number of plugins delivered by SAP via some channels. They are not private, but they are also not part of the plugin repository, if I remember correctly. So that's also
That's possibility. Problem like with this, like so we have kind of like compatibility, right? Like some plugins that just like v3 oriented, right? Like and just like legacy plugins like with v2. So I mean support again, just like it need to be like well thought. Like would be great just maybe to start some RFC like about like what to do with this. Either like we need some dependency management system that would just at least separate like a couple kind of categories of plugins based on their compatibility, or some other clever approach.
I know you can get some of that information from the plugin list that people, that's public, that people are updating. You can see which ones are still being maintained, and that you could see in the I think it's something CF not community, Cloud Foundry plugins. There's a place that you have something. I'll find the link and I'll put
You're
it in.
referring to the plugins repository, like where we have YAML, like with a list of
Yeah,
plugins that are shipped by default.
Yes.
That's a valid point. That's a good start. But again, like we don't have like visibility, like which part of this plugin repo is still active. I mean, like active, yes, but like which one is compatible, say for instance, with latest V8, like which one are broken. So it's all pretty much chaos, like, and we need to take some action, and we need some plan, like how to approach that. And I invite you all to be part of this this solution.
Okay.
Okay. The other point, and I think Daria just joined the call, is she has some PRs with functionality for the command line interface with to support generic route features, and there were some issues with the integration tests, maybe caused by the V2 disabling. And maybe, I don't know, could you help Daria to get these PRs validated? I think there are meanwhile fixes to re-enable V2, but still something is broken.
No, those PRs are already merged, and we have the next problem. The next problem are those integration tests are failing. I have posted it in the channel, but still there is no answer. I have no authorization to do something about it. But yeah, those are integration tests. And we have the second issue for the branch version 8. There are unit tests for OS for Mac OS or OS 6 version. One of the versions are failing, but it's only in the version 8 branch. So those problems are not connected to the CF API version 2. Big problem, because it's already solved and merged. So we have done it already.
Well, situations like with integration tests, it's known, and we're actively working on. That's that first point. About units, situation is a little bit like different, but well, we'll need to look into that. Likely, like we have also like holidays, like so, like now January, so we're catching up. And final thing, like if you're serious about contributing to CFCLI, like I would suggest to apply for becoming like core member. We would love to have like diversity in terms of organizations, like in CLI core members. So that could be really a good way to balance this team and get some of your ideas, applied to CLI.
I don't know. I thought we are not allowed to apply until we have, I don't know, 50 pull requests or so. So that's
No. We can talk about this. You can immediately apply for a reviewer, and then I think it's more if the area is, let's say, really crying for new approvers, and there might be a faster pace or whatever. So
okay,
absolutely
can work out.
And I will apply.
I would very much support that.
Yeah, but still we need someone who will look at the integration test, because I cannot fix anything. It's not connected to the API version 2. It's some kind of, I don't know, flaky test, and I cannot do anything about it.
You can do something, like, and again, just like we're happy to work like on this specific area. So like if you have like time, like, and motivation, we're super happy to just let you know a little bit more about integration test kind of systems, and maybe even document that to make it like even more transparent. So all possible, up to the point like to maybe like just run like parallel like some integration tests like on some SAP infrastructure or elsewhere.
Okay, but still, until I will manage to do everything, I think we need to solve it, because no pull request can be merged now. All the PPRs are red because of this issue, and yes, I think it's we need to fix it fast.
Absolutely. As I said, like as of today's morning, like I just checked, like it's been actively worked on. There are a couple problems like with infrastructure, specifically like with BPM, Bosch, like, and some like deep things, because right now like we're running like all those infrastructure on Dockerized environments. Basically, like all VMs are Dockerized via Warden. And there are some very specific issues, like hopefully like next couple of days, it should be resolved.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm blocked now. I cannot, my 2 pull requests with route features are waiting. So yeah, and maybe a couple of other pull requests also, as I have seen. Yep.
Okay. Good. Next topic would be support for file-based service bindings. There is, in the implementation, we found an issue with the encoding of the information that we have normally in VCAP services. And if we write it down into files, then we either do it in incompatible way, which would violate not the service bindings IO spec, not necessarily by the words of the spec, but for how it is used in practice. So we could, for instance, quote every credential, but nobody expects a password in quotes, right, in a service binding file that is on the in the file system of your application. And if we write it the standard way, then we lose type information, and there can be situations where strings with special characters where it's not clear how to interpret it, or if a string starts with a bracket like here, you don't know, is it an array or is it actually a string password which starts with a bracket, something like that. And there have been several discussions and proposals here on this issue, how to solve it with additional metadata, or write an additional VCAP services file. And there's a third proposal, which is currently has some +1, and also in the discussion thread seems to be the preferred one, which actually implements 2 different versions for these file-based service bindings, and the user can actually choose. That means you either get a single file, which is the JSON representation of VCAP services, 1 file, that's it. That's nice for CF applications that just have to solve this 130K problem that you get pretty soon if you use certificates in your service bindings. Easy to use, nearly no migration effort. And on the other hand, you could use file-based service bindings in a service binding IO flavor, which is helpful if you are if you're using, for instance, cloud native build packs, or you want to implement a application that is supposed to run on Kubernetes in parallel and on CF. And that's, yeah, the third proposal with pros and cons. So if you have an opinion on that, maybe you can comment. We would need a decision rather soon, because we are also blocked here in the implementation, and also the Diego part cannot continue until we have a decision how to solve that. The default option from my point of view would be this option number 3, that allows the user to choose. Pros and cons are written there. The other examples have redundancy inside, which is also bad, especially because we are talking about large service binding information, and then you would have the file twice, and could be also an issue. Yep, I would like to see also the opinion of Greg here on this ticket. So maybe I give it 1 more week, but then I would take a decision and we continue with the implementation. Yep. Then there are 2 more RFCs, Bindable Secrets Resource. We discussed it in the TOC because that seems to be a little bit stalled. We don't know, should we start the final 1 week request for comment period, or should we put it, let's say, on hold until the file-based service binding information RFC, the implementation is done, because there are some dependencies inside. Don't know if there's opinions. Was mostly driven by Greg and yeah, Broadcom, so would need input from the side. And then we have the RFC app manifest v2. It's accepted. There's a tracking issue for it available. And yeah, at least from SAP side, we have no immediate plans to start here the implementation, because there's a lot of other things to do still on our plate. I also heard from the Broadcom side that there is no immediate starting of the implementation, but maybe something for 25 second half or so. Don't know.
We're also looking at what to do for Stratos in terms of the V2 interfaces that are being used. Are we allowed to create an RFC underneath the community area, or that needs to come through the TOC to make that happen? The changes that have to be done.
Well, an RFC is basically a, let's say, discussion thread when multiple working groups are affected. So if it's something that is only in the application runtime interfaces working group, we could also discuss it on an issue in this meeting here. That's no problem. But if it's something that would affect also, let's say, the runtime on routing, etc., then an RFC is the right thing to start, and that always goes through this TOC. But of course, the working groups are bringing the content. The RFC is more or less just the moderator.
So for this working group, where do you put your RFCs if it's only within the group?
We usually put that as an issue on the respective projects.
Okay.
That would be a starting point, and then you bring it on the agenda and we discuss it. And maybe that's a good starting point. That's a low ceremony, and if we then feel it should be an RFC, it can be converted, right? That's no...
Okay. I just want to do it the way that, we're now part of your working group, so I want to make sure we do it the appropriate way that you guys have planned. So, all right. So I'll create an RFC underneath the Stratos area for tracking that. Then. Okay.
Good. Then, yeah, we have also nobody here from the CF Java client. There are many open PRs and little progress in the working group. And the PRs would actually improve the v3 support. So it would be really helpful if we could here get a little bit more traction. And there's especially one PR that I mentioned here that we need, because at the moment with disabled v2, the CF Java client won't work anymore at all, because it has an, let's say, unfortunate v2 info call in the very beginning to learn about, and it's easy to fix. The PR is open, but it needs to be merged, and we need a new release, and then we can go from there. So here we also have from the SAP side one reviewer. Yeah, would discuss whether we could also, let's say, go here a fast track to, yeah, because it looks like this project needs simply more resources to continue. And there are many users of the CF Java client, so it would be really helpful if we could provide here good v3 support. Yeah, but also something I need to discuss with Greg. Yep, Cloud Controller ID primary key migration. That's something for Johannes.
Yeah, that's something we started to work on. So at SAP, we have foundations running already for a couple of years, and we will, by the end of this year, we'll have the problem that for the events table, the primary key might overflow because it's a normal integer. And yeah, I've evaluated some options, put them together in this linked ADR. It's just a draft, nothing final. But basically, the idea is that we have, do a migration over multiple steps to change the type to bigint. yeah, it's basically work in progress. It's a draft. So yeah, in case you have any opinions on this topic, feel free to comment on this PR, and then yeah, we can discuss it. We just want to have like a common understanding and a good approach for this, because if we do that, we should do it for yeah, it will be a part of the cloud controller, of upcoming cloud controller releases, and yeah, so we all should be on the same page. So yeah, so if you have topics, interest, like any opinion on that, or know someone who has opinion on that topic, yeah, feel free to comment.
How do you want your comments? Because this is a
I mean, it's just a markdown, so you could just edit something if you want to.
okay.
Like, I mean, if theoretically you could also, if okay, depends on if you're approve or not, but you could just apply comment, like, then I would make the necessary adjustments. But
All right, two conversations. Okay, gotcha.
yeah, but it's like, yeah, like worst case, if it's like somebody has a completely different, a better idea, I could also close it and start a new one. It's just to have like some point, that some form of documentation that we document the decisions, because this requires multiple steps probably to avoid that downtime. So yeah, so it should be somehow documented, otherwise it could confuse people.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, maybe some two minor updates on Capi, what we are working on. So we have started to work on Cloud Controller worker metrics, because for now only the API node can send metrics. The Cloud Controller worker is lacking the infrastructure to do so. But there are, for instance, connection pool metrics, which are pretty interesting, especially now with the thread-based workers, where you could increase the throughput and also then see, let's say, lack of database connections. So that's something we are working on. This will be Prometheus-based, an endpoint, and then ship the metrics similar to what the API is doing today. And the second thing is the Rails 8 update. There was a Dependabot PR, but it failed, and it looks like there is at least a change in Rails 8, which could impact the compatibility of the jobs that are stored in the delayed jobs table, because they use Rails classes for serialization, and we had once from, I don't know, 5 to 6, a bigger outage during the upgrade, and that's why we want to test that before updating. Good, and then we don't have anybody here from the build pack, but there is an issue with a novel stem cell validation. There's a ticket open for the Java build pack. It's not yet stack, it's only the stem cell, so that's why, but that's currently work in progress, and sooner or later, CF deployment should work with a novel stem cell. And that's then also the, not a prerequisite, but it's a good starting point for also providing the next FS5 stack and build pack support, which we need sooner or later when the current version will go out of maintenance, I think, in a good year. Yep, these were the topics that I had on the agenda. Is there anything from your side you want to add, you want to discuss? Okay, then I guess we can close the call, and I will ping Greg to read through the minutes and provide feedback on all the many PRs, because that's what is needed. Okay, thank you very much, and then see you in 4 weeks.